Suckat here, and GGG recently released an entire list of all of the 281 keynotes being added in Delirium League. I'm going to go through some of the ones that really stood out. Obviously, there's 281, so I cannot review every single one. Nearly everyone got something good. I'll talk about the ones which did very well, in my opinion, and the archetypes that did not so well. We'll start off just going through the big keynotes. So, a Disciple of Kitava. Every second, consume a nearby corpse to grab 5% of life and mana. 10% more damage taken if you haven't consumed a corpse recently. Not the best, not the worst. It's pretty decent. I played a lot of Self-Cast Detonate Dead last league. I would actually use this on that build. So yeah, it's pretty solid. It's pretty solid. Not amazing, very niche, decent. Lone Messenger. You can only have one Herald, 50% more effective Herald buffs on you. 100% more damage with hits from Herald skills, 50% more damage over time with Herald skills, means from Herald skills deal 25% more damage your arrow skills are disabled. This is really solid. There's been a lot of very nice things for what looks like Herald of Agony or Herald of Fury in here, which makes you think they might be getting hit pretty hard by the patch notes. But yeah, this seems pretty cool. I like it. Nature's Patience. Gain 2 Grasping Vines each second while stationary. 2% chance to deal double damage per Grasping Vine. 1% less damage taken per Grasping Vine. There are some abilities which don't count as moving. For example, Flicker Strike could have 100% uptime on this. If you're a channeling just face tank build, this would be nice for like cheesing bosses and stuff. It's again very niche, but it's generically powerful for niche builds, so it's decent. It's not too exciting, but it's pretty good. This is one of the most interesting ones, I would say. Cannot ignite, chill, freeze, or shock, but critical strikes inflict Scorch, Brittle, and Sapped. Scorch enemies have their element's resistance lowered by up to 30% based on the fire damage. So again, this depends on how hard you hit the enemies. Hits of up to 50%. This is base crit chance, again based on the hit. Sapped enemies deal up to 20% less based on the hit. The reason why this could be powerful is some builds already have guaranteed chills or shocks from secondary sources, something like Skitterbots. For example, if you're like a lightning trap build, you kind of want to use Skitterbots anyway, which guarantees a shock, so maybe you could use this for some damage reduction. If you're a crit build which doesn't really care about Ignite, and you just want to get generically lowered resistances, seems good. Base crit's obviously very strong. Yeah, you're going to have to hit very hard. Don't expect to have like the full threshold on bosses, because bosses is where this stuff really matters. But you could just think of this that for mapping, this is pretty solid damage reduction for like hardcore speed clearers. It's pretty solid. Kineticism. This one's kind of weird. So attack projectiles always inflict bleed, maim, and knock back enemies. Projectiles cannot pierce, fork, or chain. This is interesting for abilities that have inbuilt pierce, fork, or chain that for whatever reason you wanted them not to pierce, fork, or chain. It's mostly decent for something like Bleed Rain of Arrows, because you get the guaranteed maim knockback. You get the guaranteed bleed, but you nearly always have guaranteed bleed on bleed builds. But yeah, incredibly niche. Super, super niche. Bit of a weird one. I don't really know why they made that. It's kind of... Veteran's Awareness. Very interesting. Potentially kind of funny. Plus 10 to all elemental resistances and maximum elemental resistance while affected by a non-Vol Guard skill, so basically anything but Vol Molten Shell. 20% more damage taken if a non-Vol Guard buff was lost recently, so in the last 4 seconds. 20% additional physical damage reduction while affected by a non-Vol Guard skill. So, if you were to stack up a bunch of skill effect duration, and again, you only have this more damage taken if you've lost a buff recently. So when you don't have any guard skills up, your character's at normal strength, you could then just like press like a 10-12 second guard skill with enough investment maybe, to just like face tank the hell out of a boss. I could see someone using this for very niche things. Maybe if you are like trying to cheese boss mechanics where you could like face tank a certain phase to DPS and then you could like guarantee dodge. I don't know, it's weird. It's weird, it's kind of cool, but it's weird. Hollow Palm Technique, this is obviously build defining, everyone's very excited about this. You count as dual wielding while you're unencumbered, 6% more attack speed while you're unencumbered, 14 to 20 added attack physical damage per 10 dex while you're unencumbered. You are unencumbered or you have no equipped gloves, main hand, or offhand. So, this is very cool. Again, there are lots of very powerful nodes in here. I'm not going to read every single one. To give you an example of how many powerful nodes there are in here, I started copy-pasting the ones that seemed good into a Google Doc, and I actually stopped about halfway through because I just got kind of distracted, and I still had like 15 pages. And again, I wasn't just like copy-pasting ones which like, this is good, because there are lots of just good ones. These are like, these are very powerful for specific things. So for example, Ignite to inflict deal damage 50% faster. It's very hard to get this stat. This is incredibly powerful for Ignite builds. There's loads of generic increased skill effect duration, increased golem buff effect. There's enemies you kill have a 10% chance to explode, dealing a quarter of their maximum life as chaos damage. Like, we only pulled out like the very like, yo, this seems really good. There are, however, some archetypes that seem to like kind of lose or just kind of get, none of the devs can come up with something cool for them. Bows spring to mind. Oh, sorry, just bow. Things worth keeping in mind. So nearly every single archetype has like specific ones. So there are 3 bow-only nodes. However, there are lots of generic attack ones that any bow build would just use the generic attack ones or the generic defense ones. So bows have arrows gain critical strike chance as they travel further, up to 100%. Arrows gain damage as they travel further, dealing up to 50%. It's decent. Most of the time, you're going to be getting like maybe 50% crit, maybe 20% damage. It's alright. It will smooth out your clear a bit, I guess, but nothing that special. Bow skills have 10% damage over time multiplier. Bow skills have 20% increased skill effect duration. This is amazing for something like Toxic Rain or Caustic Arrow. This is really, really good, but that's not what most people think of as bow stuff. Like, this is great for my Caustic Arrow build and for Toxic Rain builds, but if you're like a, I don't know, Barrage dude, you're like, yo, where's my cool stuff? Bow skills have 25% increased arrow effect. Very generically powerful. Great. Strong. Also very good for like Toxic Rain, very good for something like Caustic Arrow. But the average bow dude, I think, would feel a little bit kind of like, oh, that was kind of whatever. The next one, which really stuck out to me for being a bit kind of meh, is Traps. Traps didn't really get anything that exciting. There's some stuff which seems kind of cool at first glance, but considering how much super powerful stuff there is for other archetypes, I'm pretty disappointed, to be honest. So, Set and Forget's kind of cool because it gives trap damage, increased generic AoE, 25% reduced trap duration, 40% increased trap trigger AoE. So my first reaction was, oh cool, so I can get like 4 of these, and then I can do a Sunblast thing where I'm to use Sunblast. But then I'm like, well, how good is that in modern day PoE? Not that great. You then need to have 4 of these jewels, which is a lot of points. Also, with how good stuff like Flamethrower Trap is and Lightning Spire Trap is these days, this screws over those a bit, which kind of sucks. Also, there's negative synergy between reduced trap duration and increased trap trigger AoE, since if you've got enough increased trap trigger AoE, you don't need reduced trap duration. If you have enough reduced trap duration, you don't need trap trigger AoE. If you don't know, traps trigger at the end of their duration, so that's why they call it Set and Forget. So you either like throw it near an enemy, it's got so much increased trigger, it just blows up anyway, or it doesn't matter if you miss because it just blows up. Basically, it's just kind of, it's not as cool as it looks. This is some mine stuff. This is decent. This is just like pretty solid. 20% damage, 10% trap throwing speed, 5% movement speed. I can't complain at that. It is just generically decent. 10% chance to deal additional trap on mine. This is like 10% more damage. It's decent. It's not exciting though. Like, none of them are like, oh, I need to build around this. You know what I mean? 20% trap damage. Gain Arcane Surge when a mine is detonated. Arcane Surge when a trap is triggered. Decent for the Eldritch Battery guys. There's a lot of people who do Eldritch Battery with Tinkerskin. Again, it's not exciting. 50% multi, 5% pen. Good, but not exciting. And then 4% life, trap damage. This is genuinely really solid. Not many offensive types got life on them, so I feel like they were kind of like, yo, people complain about traps and mines being squishy, we'll give them a life node. So, you know, it's good, but none of these are very exciting. I was kind of hoping we would get some, like, cool things, like maybe trap cooldown recovery, so you could build into, like, just playing a big cooldown-based trapper, or, like, increase trap charges, or have, you know, traps gain special effects when triggered on enemies. For example, curses have some really cool stuff. There are some incredibly cool curse ones. Anyone was thinking about maybe playing Bane, but was worried that Bane won't do enough damage? Well, Bane might still not do enough damage, but the curse stuff are great. So, for example, enemies you curse take 5% increased damage. 5% chance to dodge attack hits from cursed enemies. Super generically powerful 5% damage, and 5% chance to dodge. That's really cool. Really, really cool. That's the kind of thing I would have liked from, like, the trap stuff. Like, you throw a trap, does some damage, maybe you gain some dodge. Like, you gain some defense, or you debuff enemies, or something, you know. Increased effects of your curses, increased damage if you've killed a cursed enemy recently. Increased area of curse skills, so Bane. Increased curse effects. Curse skills reduce reservation, so if you're doing Blasphemy, AoE, and reduce reservation, great. Increased effects of curses. Enemy curse are hindered. Regenerate ES if you killed an enemy, really strong. Skill effect duration, great. Enemies you curse are unnerved, intimidated. That's unnerved is hard to get. That's 10% spell damage. You have Culling Strike against cursed enemies. Curse have increased skill effect duration. Great. The Warcry stuff, again, big winners. Generically powerful stuff. Obviously, stuff like curses, stuff like Warcries, they're generic things you should be using in lots of builds. They're trying to push lots of random builds so they would get more powerful things than a specific archetype. I'm just a little bit bummed out about the trap stuff. You and nearby party members gain rage. It's worth noting that minions are allies, they're not party members, so you can't give rage to your allies, but this is insane for supports. Really, really good. Also keep in mind that Warcries aren't instant, so you can link them to second wind, so you can like double cast Warcries. That's like double tap, 10 rage. Great. Increased Warcry duration, additional effects, solid. Enemies swamped by your Warcries are unnerved. It's very hard to get unnerved, but again, this means that just like nearly any build can just shove a Warcry in there and gain 10% more damage. And then the defensive buffs you get from like Enduring Cry, or just generic damage and mana sustain from a Rallying Cry. Abyssal Cry is great to stop porcupines. You can also link like Onslaught to Abyssal Cry for Onslaught generation. 4% physical damage reduction if you use a Warcry in the past 8 seconds is really good. 4% chance to deal double damage if you Warcry past 8 seconds, amazingly strong. 15% multi, 40% crits, like really, really good nodes. 35% crit multi, 50% crit damage, cooldown recovery, increased AoE, enemies taunted you take 5% increased damage. When you Warcry, you taunt enemies. So these are like insanely, insanely strong. I would say that it doesn't matter what build you're playing, you gain something really cool. Even if you are playing a trap build, you gain very cool things. They're just like good defensive things. The flask nodes are also pretty exciting. So there's lots of like flask effect duration, which is good if you're doing the like Vol flask build. There's lots of flask effects, also very good for that. One which stood out to me, which I really liked. Remove bleeding when you use a life flask. Life flask gain 1 charge every 3 seconds. Increase life recovery from flasks. This is great. If you have this, you no longer need to put bleed removal on your life flask, which is really, really solid. Obviously, if you're like a very fast-hitting build, like Cyclone or something, you'll still want it, but for a lot of builds which just end up with a little bit of bleed every now and again, super strong. Also, this frees up your Pantheon choices a bit, because a lot of people feel like they often have to use Soul of Raslada for bossing. You could now use this and use a different Pantheon choice bossing, or you could just stack this and Soul of Raslada and just spam your life loss like crazy. And then there's just some like generically powerful ones like increased life regen, increased damage during flask effects. This one's also pretty solid, 3% physical damage reduction during any life or mana flask. They're really pushing Mind Over Matter, enduring mana flasks. So easy to just have this up all the time. So if you're like Indigon, or just like want more mana sustain, really solid, and you get some physical damage reduction. But I would say the main winners, if I had to pick like one build that did very well out of all of this, anything which uses skill effect duration. Skill effect duration is currently very awkward to get on the tree. You can only get it here and here in Scion. Skill effect duration is also very broken on the builds that stack it. So for example, Toxic Rain, it's amazing with skill effect duration. Blight is very good with skill effect duration, although a lot of people don't stack it for Blight. Depending what the cap is on Animate Weapon, it used to be really good on that, but that'll be less of an issue now. It's basically really good for stuff like Toxic Rain. Also very good for stacking up Vol skills. Vol Molten Shell, kind of good at the moment. So here, let's see. Bow skills do 10% damage over time. We already showed you that one. Very good. Chaos damage skill effect duration. 5% chaos damage over 10 multiplier. Chaos skills have 30% increased skill effect duration. 20% increased damage over time. 15% increased skill effect duration. Chaos skills have 50% increased skill effect duration. Pretty good. There's also a lot of avoid ailments, which is very strong. There you go. So, this is just generic 25% chance to avoid elemental ailments, 3% chance to block spells, 3% chance to block attacks. Doesn't say with shield, so that can be with anything. If you didn't know, if you have a 100% chance to avoid elemental ailments, you are immune to all elemental ailments. I've been planning a lot of my builds for League Start around using the crafted mod on helmet and gloves. You can craft 25% on helm, 25% on gloves. You can craft 35% on chest, that is a prefix. I was planning on using Helmcraft, Glovecraft, and you can get 35% on Shaper Boots, and then anointing Crystal Skin on the tree. I could just pick up one of these nodes, and that would save me some craft slots, which is very strong. This one's really good. I really like Elegant Form. This is 30% chance and 3% chance to dodge spells and attacks. I prefer this one to the other one because it gives you, well, 5% more chance to avoid ailments, so it's just better numerically. And also getting spell dodge is generally harder on the tree. So that's pretty solid. There's lots of just generic deal double damage, lots of increased maximum resistances. There is something good defensively for every single build. There's also lots of very powerful just life things. We do know the defensive ones will be rarer. They'll be these smaller jewels that require a lot of investment. I would definitely say it's worth planning your build around having access to maybe like 10 or so points to put into these. Looking into it, I don't think many people go for the full 20 early into the league. We also don't know how rare these will be. So I would say plan a build around level 85, 90-ish, but try and put yourself near Cluster Jewels. I can give you an example of what my League Start build will look like with this in mind. So I'm planning on doing Corsicara / Essence Drain, and I planned a level 85 tree with the thing in there. Has all the defense. And again, as you can see, you're mostly getting offense. There are some very strong defensive nodes, but you'll be getting a majority offensive nodes. So make sure you plan your tree getting most of your defense, and this is just getting you some special unique effects like plus to all maximum elemental resistances, for example. But anyway, I'm Tarky. These look pretty good. I am disappointed by traps. Feels bad, man. But overall, I'm pretty happy with these. Have a good day. Patch notes soon. By the way, I'm pretty sure they're going to absolutely destroy minions because there are so many good minion nodes in here. Like, they have to kill minions. So, F to everyone who's excited to play with the 350 new Spectres, by the way. Bye-bye. 100 flat maximum energy shield. Yo.